We are going to call this meeting to order now. It is 7 p.m. on January 5th, 2023, and this is a public meeting of the City of Portland Police Accountability Commission Subcommittee on Access to Information. If the Spanish language interpreter, Gaby or Maria, can please give the information on a Spanish language interpretation, please.
Esta es la reunión del Comité de Responsabilidad Policíaca hoy, 5 de enero a las 7 p.m., el Subcomité de Acceso al Español. Do you want me to give the information about how to go into the or afterwards?
Sí, por favor.
Esta es una reunión pública sujeta a la ley del estado de Oregon, la ciudad y las reglas administrativas de la ciudad de Portland y será grabada. La interpretación en español está disponible para esta reunión. Para accesar la interpretación en español, puede ver el video de las personas que están hablando, pero el audio será reemplazado por el intérprete. Para accesar esto, por favor, pulse donde dice abajo Language Interpretation en la barra de abajo, ¿no? Del Zoom. Y luego seleccione Spanish.
Muchas gracias.
Okay.
This city also offers ASL interpretation, which is being provided by Andrea and Amanda. Please pin their video feed to see their interpretation throughout the meeting. The closed captioning is turned on in Zoom as another means of assistance. But please note that this is an automatic captioning services and it is not always accurate. The city support access to meetings of the Police Accountability Commission and can provide other language support as well. Please email in advance of future public meetings, either as response to a public meeting notice or directly to policeaccountability@portlandoregon.gov to ask for other access assistance, including interpretation into other language. This meeting is a public meeting subject to City of Portland Administrative Code and Oregon State Law and is being recorded. For this meeting, the chat function is enabled for commission members to communicate with each other. Members of the public will be able to ask questions using Zoom's Q&A feature. As the commissioners are presenting and or discussing things, if attendees have questions, please feel free to submit them through the Q&A. We hope to use this feature to help guide our conversations during the meeting and future meetings agenda topics. We'd like to be clear that not all questions will be answered during the meeting, but if answered, both the question and answer will be visible to you and will become part of the meeting record. To access this feature, just click on the Q&A icon in the middle of your screen. Now I will pass it to the co-chairs for the land acknowledgement.
Good evening, everyone. The PAC currently uses the land acknowledgement on display at City Hall, which is, we acknowledge that the rivers, lakes, streams, and lands of the lower Willamette River rest upon the occupied territories of the Multnomah, Wasco, Cowlitz, Cathlamet, Clackamas, Chinook, Tualatin, Calapia, Walala, and many other tribes. We recognize the many villages, traditions, cultures, and relationships that existed along the river since time immemorial. We recognize these tribes stewarded these lands and rivers since time immemorial for future generations. We recognize and undertake responsibility for the destruction of the river and land, of traditional food sources, sacred places, and multifaceted ways of life. We acknowledge the economic and social values that enabled the harm to the river, including systemic racism, classism, and other systems of oppression that perpetuated harm against Black, Indigenous, and immigrant communities along the river. With this acknowledgement, we commit to honoring and learning from the past and working towards a more equitable and sustainable future for the lower Willamette River. We commit to seeking solutions that acknowledge the inequities of past socioeconomic policies and the harm done to people and our relationships to these lands and waters.
Thank you, Co-Chair Obi. Now we resume the slides to reflect on the community agreements. As always, we will give a couple minutes to read through the first and second page to guide and reflect in our conversation and our meeting today. Thank you. Now, I would like to ask everyone, oh, there is another page, sorry. Do we all commit to the following, the community agreements for today's meeting, and to gently call in our college if in collaborators if needed? And if you can see your hands or your thumbs up. Thank you, I really appreciate it. I will pass it over the co-chairs to discuss the timeline.
Okay, so first off, I'd like to welcome my fellow co-chair at this point, Dan. So thanks for being a part of this. So this meeting is a part of the Police Accountability Commission's powers and duties phase of work, which focuses on the functions of the new system. Future phases of work will develop the form of the new system, as well as how it relates to the rest of city government and the transition plan from our current system to the new one. The Commission will present all proposed changes to the City Council in 2023 for the consideration and approval. This slide shows the outcome documents for the powers and duties phase based on the agenda and scope approved by the Commission. This subcommittee will focus on how the new system will access the information it needs to do its work. This slide is the current project plan for the powers and duties phase of the Police Accountability Commission's work. It will be updated as needed throughout this phase of work. This slide is for members of the public to be able to understand how the Commission gets from now through the end of the phase, which focuses on identifying areas of agreement among Commission members as to the functions of the new system. Today's meeting is part of the light blue box with the red border near the middle of the screen. Following today, here are the upcoming meetings of the PAC. Specifically, we'd like to highlight the full PAC will have its next meeting on Thursday, January 19th. The Commission is planning a community listening session next week and Q&A, and that's for Tuesday, January 10th. Today's meeting agenda includes working through the updated co-chairs draft of areas of agreement on access to information, resolving items, and eventually referring the documents to the full PAC for their consideration later this month. As part of the referral process, the subcommittee will also hear public comment during today's meeting.
Thank you. Thank you, Co-Chair Obi. We are now going to start discussing the draft PAC areas of agreement on access to information, which the subcommittee is tasked with referring to the full commission for its approval. I'll now pass it to co-chairs Obi and Dan to explain the document we all gonna review. Thank you.
So yeah, as staff is uploading the document, thank you for sending in the revisions, and to people who are here and not here, but thank you. We'll plan on going section by section and just slightly out of order, so we can discuss some of the things that were unresolved from last time. We had gone through compelled testimony and subpoena power last time, and did a few edits to those. We will then follow up with access to police records, data, and the speculative body camera section. So for the first section, and sorry, there's definitions as well, and a little intro paragraph, but we'll start it there.
Thank you, Co-Chair Obi. We will now move into discussing the draft areas of agreement or access to information. This will include reviewing the document, which has had some updates to the text based on previous comments. It will also include revisiting items flagged for further discussion in advance of the discussion to refer. We ask you to follow our normal discussion rules. Please be brief each time you speak, even though you can speak multiple times. Please be facilitated, and remember that we're now using a weighted stack in our discussions. Finally, please be forward-looking in your comments. Would the co-chairs like to get the discussion started?
Sure, that would be great. I see right now that we're actually looking at the definitions portion, which was not on there in the previous meeting. The definitions listed are garrity warning, subpoena ad testificandum, and subpoena ducis tecum, which were mentioned in kind of the subpoena section. If you would like to read through, I don't think I need to read through, and I think we kind of discussed the meaning of the garrity warning last time. Anything to add, Commissioner Pan?
Yes, hi, I'm Dan Handelman. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm the co-chair of this subcommittee as of a very short time ago. Yeah, I had put a note in. I thought that maybe we don't need the separate kinds of subpoenas listed in our document because those are real technical legal terms, and you know, I like having, if we're going to leave them in, we should have the definitions in, but you know, I don't know if we need to get that specific. We just call it a subpoena throughout the document. That's my suggestion. That I don't know what, maybe when we run across it later in the document, we can discuss what to do with the definitions later. Thanks.
And that's agreeable. Actually, thinking at this point, we could just move on to the definitions, the intro statement, and then to compelling testimony, and we can go back to that if need be. But I agree with that.
Would you like me to read? Oh, I'm sorry, the staff wants to say something.
Yes, hi. So just as a clarification, the item is not numbered here, but this is one of the areas of agreement. So there's sort of an introductory section. As we go, we'll do what we did in previous parts of the previous subcommittees and read the bolded out loud into the record while showing all of the supplementary sentences for folks to read that on their own. But with relation to the intro paragraph, this is just essentially a copy and paste from the previous fact-finding phase documents and just updating it with the relevant information to the access to information. So this sort of intro section has two parts, the intro paragraph and then this one item that was moved up from, it was in a section during last meeting and it was moved up because it was broader than that section to be the whole document. So it's a little too long to show all at once, so I'll scroll as needed.
While you're on here, I'll just read this into the record for the bold statement. The Oversight Board shall have the authority to obtain information to administratively respond to allegations of misconduct and conduct structural oversight effectively.
Can we move on? Are there comments or questions or suggestions? Okay, we can move on to A. Kosher, do you want me to read it or you want to read it, the whole part?
Sorry, I have 2 points. Point number one, for compelling testimony, I think Commissioner Dan's gonna head this one up. There is a question in Q&A that I just saw and clicked on. Do we want to go through those for each section or save them for the end?
It's up to
Oh.
you.
Yeah, I think that is something that we can add, look at the end, because it's not directly relevant to the access to information. It's a broader question that we can put in the bin for stuff later.
Perfect. Okay.
Oh yeah. But most of this section is stuff that we went over at the last meeting. So the main things that, this A1 was something that I think we already agreed on. Is that correct? I'm a little confused because I have the guidelines of the things that we're supposed to discuss, and it says compelling testimony section 2 is the first thing that was something that we needed to discuss.
Yeah.
And I will, sorry,
Sorry,
Commissioner and Co-Chair, the staff has the answer probably. I will pass it to staff.
Yeah, the 16 items that were circulated by email were things that were known to be discussion items. They're not necessarily an exhaustive list. So if there's nothing that's that a member flagged for further discussion on an item, it wouldn't show up on the list. But in order to be able to progress now, it might make sense to just simply say we haven't heard of anything that's been flagged for discussion on this item. Can we move on? But you know, also there's a couple things, and I'm not sure if these if there were any flags on the items that are unnumbered in between the sort of Plan B section that might be in the list too.
Thank you. Then I will ask for the part of compelling testimony for A1. Is not any flag or comment. Can we move on to the rest of this section? Okay, thank you. Let's move on.
Okay, so here this is A2. So there's a clarification we need to make up in the what we're calling the backup, the Plan B item that's underneath. But I'll read the original into the record. A Bureau employee shall attend investigative interviews conducted by the board, cooperate with and answer questions asked by the investigators during the administrative investigation. And the Plan B that we need to discuss is if an employee refuses to attend an investigative interview after being notified to do so, or refuses to answer a question or questions asked during an investigative interview, it says the police chief or mayor shall direct the employee to attend the interview and answer the question or questions asked. And I think the question on the floor is whether or not we should contemplate the mayor won't always be the police commissioner in 2 years when the charter's changed, kicks in. And should we say the police chief or appropriate city authority instead of the mayor?
Thank you, Co-Chair Dan. And I don't know if the staff is raising their hand or, oh, they forgot. No,
I forgot to lower it, but I was going to raise it again. So, yeah, that might be helpful. The charter change has the mayor directly supervising the city administrator, also you know, colloquially referred to as a city manager, and then nearly all bureau heads reporting to the city administrator and not directly to the mayor or another commission member, council member at that point. However, there are two exceptions to that. One is the city attorney and the other is the chief of police. So in the new charter, and we can pull up the text, there is a reference to the chief of police reporting directly to the mayor, which may be helpful to observe.
Thank you, staff. Then the question here is there a revised version, or are you with the okay with the version as it is? Can we move on to any? Oh yeah, Co-Chair Obi, please.
Yes, if you look at Commissioner Hanneman's text, I think, or sorry, Co-Chair Hanneman's text, I think that is fine with what's added there, like or appropriate, like, you know, appropriate person, so police chief, mayor, or appropriate person. I think that doesn't detract from any of the meaning of it, and it would be more encompassing of possible city changes.
Okay, then it should say the police chief or appropriate city authority. That's the suggested change. The revised version. Is there a strong opposition to change it from as it was to a proposed change? Is there general agreement to change it as it was, as it is now? Okay, can we move on for the next? Thank you.
So again, A3 is something that we discussed at the last meeting, and unless somebody has something that they want to discuss about it, I'm hoping we can just move on to A4. I'll give people the opportunity to quickly look at it and see if that raises any questions.
And I would read it just for the record. A3 as refusal to truthfully and completely answer all questions may result in discipline up to and including termination. Can we move on to the next one?
Facilitator Lara, I just want to point out that Commissioner Seychow is on the phone, and I don't know if she's participating by raising hands or letting you know.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, Commissioner, may if any time you want to speak, and it's okay, you interrupt me or we can hear your voice. It's very valuable that you are here. Please just let us know and it will be okay. Anytime you want to say something or you are opposed, please let us know.
So, Co-Chair Obi, if this is okay with you, I just kind of broadly like to ask, I mean, since we went over this entire section at the last meeting and we are running short on time to complete this document, are people okay with us just skipping to the ones that were flagged for discussion without going back over the ones that we already agreed on?
Yeah, in my opinion, that is fine. If you just wanted to, it is fine. It would be fine with me to be efficient as possible. If you just want to read the sentence and then agree, that is also fine since we already kind of agreed on it before.
Okay, A4. The board is authorized to direct Bureau members to cooperate with administrative investigations.
Right. So apparently there's a substitute or Plan B that has new wording now. Is that as a separate source of information, staff? Is that right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, so it says, as a separate source of information for the board's administrative investigations, the board staff shall have access to the Bureau members' statements from a criminal investigation, as well as relevant police reports. It was worded slightly differently before, but I think this is much clearer.
Okay, let me ask. Is there a strong opposition to change from it was to what is the proposed change? No? Is there a general agreement to keep it with the change as it is now? Okay. Thank you. And Commissioner Monica, do you have a question or comment, or just we're agreeing?
I was just going to say the board will have instead of shall have, but I mean, those are just, that's just like a minuscule change. Or is that coming out directly from the charter?
If I may, but I mean, I think the word shall has a lot stronger meaning in
Does it?
law. So yeah, so I think it's better for us to put that in where we can.
It's not in the law anywhere at present, but so it's your decision as a group what you'd like it to be.
Right. Essentially, some or all of this text that we're approving will be turned into city code, which will make it the law. So that's why I suggest, down the line, legally having the word in there to make it so. Is that okay?
That's fine.
Okay. Let's go on then.
Okay, let's move. Thank you. That's a consensus to move to the next one, A5. Compel testimonial. Yeah, go ahead, Co-Chair.
Well, this is another one we agreed upon last time. It's just compelled testimony can be done in person or virtual setting.
Okay, can we move on? Okay, let's go to A6.
So this one, I think, staff, please help me out here. It says combine or eliminate 6 and 8. So what has happened here? Has it been combined?
So, that's so although it is not, I'll just find a way to hide this on the screen if I can. But the A6 was flagged because it, and this relates to Co-Chair Obi's note here as well, essentially says that everything will be done according to the law, and 8 says, highlights a specific part of the law that it's going to be in compliance with. So the first thing is if it's redundant, it could be combined. And the second part was if it's essentially implicit to say, we're in the process of creating, just do it that way. So you can see them both together. Is it required at all was the question that was raised. Or is it implicit that certainly everything will be by the follow law?
As it happens, I'm co-chair of the subcommittee on officer accountability, where I think this is addressed in there because this is more a question of how the investigations will proceed than the access to information of how to get them to testify. So my suggestion would be to just remove both of them. I wonder if people are okay with that.
And I can ask the question, is the suggestion is to put it together? That's what I understand as it looks right now.
The suggestion is to remove them.
To remove them, I'm
The
sorry.
move was just to show them on the same page at the same time.
Okay, to remove it to show at the same page at the same time. Is there a strong opposition to that suggestion? Commissioner Sophia?
It's not strong opposition. I just wanted to ask a clarifying question. If this is going to be in the other document, do we need to say something about that here? Or, I'm just wondering if there needs to be, if someone says, oh, well, that wasn't addressed in our subcommittee, do we say it's addressed in another? Do we have to, I'm just asking. I don't know if it's important or not.
And thank you, Commissioner Sophia. Staff?
I think the first part of that question is, I think, a commission member, subcommittee member decision. But to answer the second part of the question, doesn't need to be said. The fact-finding phase documents and the drafts of the other ones have been removing the references that, there are a couple places where just as a preparatory conversation, it said, look at the officer accountability subcommittee or look at the structural oversight one. And those are removed because when this is read, it's going to be read all together as sort of three documents together about powers and duties. And so it doesn't require the written reference. In terms of, do you think it should be in or out as its own thing? That's up to the members, of course.
Thank you. That answer your question, Commissioner Sophia?
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, let me ask, is there a general agreement to remove these two items to put it in the other document that was referred to? Okay, thank you. We can go to the next one.
All right, so according to the little thing I have here, what was originally the 11th, I hope the numbers don't change. What was originally the 11th one is the next one that we didn't agree on last time. So just very quickly, the 7th one is about compelling officers can be done during the hearing of the board. The 8th one, or the 9th one, because we cut the 8th one. Can we go down to number 9?
Just a quick note, apologies. The Plan B section here was redundant. It was duplicated. So just wanted to flag, that's why you see it in a strike through. And so it had already existed up above under item A1.
Oh, okay, thank you.
And A8 is what was just removed, or one of the two. And so here's A9.
So number 9, oh, so this number 9 is a list of the steps that have to be taken before compelling officer testimony, which is just pulled right out of another text. It starts with B, C, D, and E. I'm not sure what happened to A. It's Microsoft Word. Okay, so anyway, I think we went over this last time also. So unless somebody has something that they want to jump in and say about this now, I'd like to move on, look at number 10, and then focus on number 11.
Okay, just for the record, I'm gonna ask if there's, can we move on A7? Because we didn't ask that question. Okay, and then can we move on A9? Okay, thank you. Then we go to A10.
All right, so A10 says, in use of deadly force cases, responding investigators shall have the ability to compel testimony once the criminal investigators have completed their interview. And again, we agreed on this last time, so unless there's concerns, I'm hoping we can just move to the next one.
Just, can we move to A11? Okay, thank you.
All right, here we go. So here's the big one. No, it's a wording change. So a Bureau employee shall respond to a request for compelled testimony within 48 hours. And then it kind of lists the policies that already exist that show this. So underneath all that, it says the agreement is to expand the scope of the requirements within City Code to all Oversight Board requests for compelled testimony. I'm not sure what was changed. Maybe staff can explain that.
And Co-Chair Obi can maybe speak a little more to the why of it, but just on the what, there were sort of first that if it's a attempt to compel testimony, it's not exactly a request. So maybe the word request is not the perfect word there. And so flagging that for the subcommittee to consider if there's a better word, and that would apply both up at the top and at the bottom. And then similarly, maybe respond might not be the right word, or it might be. That was why those were flagged.
Co-Chair Obi?
Yeah, agreed. That's what kind of we talked about. It does sound a bit passive, per se, in the term of compelled testimony. Just to kind of change the wording. And yeah, these are the directives, like which I think we discussed before, like the 10.10.10 directive for the time frame that they require for those specific, more acute type of cases. And we wanted to expand it to including basically anything that the new oversight board might be asked to look into if it falls in that short time frame. But you're right. Not much has changed other than some wording.
Okay, Co-Chair Dan?
Okay, so I would suggest then the Bureau employee shall comply.
Mm-hmm.
but I think I'm not sure what you say that's stronger than a request. I mean, because it's technically it's an order, but an order to a police officer has to come from their superior. So unless somebody has a better word, I would stick with request.
Is there any other suggestions for A11?
I'm not sure if this is better, but using the word demand instead of request. It sounds harsh, so I'm just, I don't know.
If you want a stronger word, that's definitely stronger. Okay. Co-chair Obi?
Yeah, I mean, like, and it's subject, of course, to the full committee as well. It's like I'm just not sure the legal or wordplay, and then like the also hierarchical wordplay of the new board versus the new board and the bureau. So yeah, I think it's okay.
But are you suggesting to just have demand or have request and demand as an options for the whole committee to decide?
I think request and demand, both of them, and then see where it lies. But comply with A is good in the top line.
Thank you, Co-chair. Commissioner Monica?
I like comply, and I wonder if call is less, yeah. The borough employee shall comply with a call for compelled testimony within 48 hours.
Okay. Co-chair Dan?
Yeah, I looked at the synonyms online, and call came up, but I was afraid that would be confused with a phone call. So that's why I just kind of feel like request may be our best bet there.
Should we do asking who is what the options are here? The first option, comply. I'm gonna ask if there is a strong opposition to change the word to a comply with that change. Is that a strong opposition? Just what the word comply. Is that an agreement to leave the word comply in the sentence? Okay, that's the agreement. Now, for the second part of the sentence, who would like to leave the word request and the three words, request, call, and demand for the full commission to decide? It's only one person, only Co-chair Obi. Okay, who would like to leave to comply with a request only with the request, the word request? There's two. And who would like to have only the word call? Nobody? Okay. And who would like to have the word demand and not request or call? Commissioner, oh no, Commissioner Sophia?
No, I know that when I said demand, it was going to be squirrely for folks. I knew that from the beginning, but I did look up, and maybe stipulate might be a better word.
Stipulate.
Because I know we're all like trying to figure out how people are going to perceive the word, you know, maybe stipulate.
Okay,
Oh.
we took out, we should take out call and demand. And yes, staff.
So just to clarify with Commissioner Sophia, would that be a request, or would that be an alternative wording for here? Because these are nouns, so would it be stipulation, or are you saying instead of the word comply?
No, comply is fine. Comply with the request. when we're trying to go request. Yeah, I'll go with, I do like the slash request slash demand, but it doesn't matter, whatever the group wants, I'm good. I think we need to just move on this one. We can come back to it if somebody finds something better in the future.
Okay, then is there general agreement to change it to the word, to using the word request? Is that general agreement? Okay, thank you. We can move on to the next one.
Okay, so Commissioner, Co-Chair Dan and I will be going through this one too, and then we'll once again flag anything that we hadn't discussed before, but just reading it into it. B1, the Oversight Board shall have the authority to issue subpoenas for the purpose of compelling witness testimony to fully and thoroughly investigate a complaint or conduct a review. And I think there was general agreement to this. The only subnote was that the reference added for it.
Can we move on to the next one? Okay, thank you.
B2, the board shall have the authority to issue subpoena duce tecum for the testimony and the production of records, including and not limited to video recordings, audio reports, and all evidence pertinent to an investigation.
Thank you. Can we move? Oh, Co-Chair Dan?
Right, so this is just where I think that we should just take out the duce tecum because I think it's just too technical, and it's either way, either kind of subpoena can be invoked throughout this document, and the lawyers can figure out which kind it is.
Okay, thank you. Is there a strong opposition to changing for what it was to the proposed change it? Just to leave subpoena? Is there a strong opposition? Is there a general agreement to change it and just leave in subpoena? Okay, we can move on.
Before we move on, if we can, Facilitator Lara and my co-chair, I just want to point out, we have these little things that say where these items came from. I'm pointing at my screen, you can't see it. And we talked earlier about turning those into footnotes so that they don't clutter up the document, but that when people are reviewing it, they say, where did that come from? That there'll be a reference so people can see it. So just so you know, those won't, the thing that says like currently practiced in San Francisco, that won't stay in the final document by our proposal. They'll be turned into footnotes. I hope everybody's okay with that. I don't know if that's something we need to consent on, but I'm hoping that people are okay with that idea.
Okay, thank you. Is there a strong opposition to that idea? Is there general agreement to that idea? Okay, great. We can move on.
Okay. B3, the Oversight Board, with the assistance of legal counsel, shall have the authority to subpoena witnesses, administer oaths, and require the production of evidence. Through the City Attorney's Office, the board shall apply to Multnomah County Courthouse or the appropriate court for the enforcement of a subpoenas duce tecum, or to impose the penalties for failure to obey a subpoena or order.
Thank you, Co-Chair Obi. Staff?
Yeah, so there was a note in this that we didn't, staff didn't want to over-interpret something from the last meeting, so just wanted to clarify this. Last time it had said, I think, an attorney's office here, and it was flagged to change it to legal counsel, but it didn't say it here. And so I know that that's a slightly different meaning in both cases. So just wanted to open that up and make sure that whatever the outcome text is was, something that the subcommittee was comfortable with there. And then I know there'll probably also be another comment on just the tecum part, but I wanted to make sure I flagged this part as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any additional comment? No? Then let me ask. Is there a strong opposition to the changes the staff made?
There's no, sorry,
There's no
there's no change. I'm just asking if this is what you wanted to say.
Okay,
It's a discussion question, sorry.
that's okay. Sorry. Is there any discussion? Okay, Commissioner Obi?
A small point, just with the subpoena ducis tecum last sentence of that. Did we want to strike that and just make that enforcement of a subpoena in broader terms and then have that delved in with the higher authorities? Either way works for me.
Thank you. Then I open to the discussion. If there is any discussion to review, if this is what you wanted to say, and I will ask about the changes later. Commissioner Sophia?
I just had a question because, staff brought up, do we want to say the attorneys, because we're using legal counsel and then we're using attorney's office. So my question is, does it have to go through the attorney's office, the city attorney's office? Or could it be the the board's attorneys do that? I mean, I don't know if there's rules. I mean, and if there are, I wanted to know what those are, and if there aren't, what would be the benefits if we could do it ourselves when I say we, the future board, they can submit those on behalf of the board and not have to go to the attorney's office. I just don't know how that works. So when he mentioned it, I just wanted to just see if anybody has any clarification for that.
And I will pass it to Co-Chair Obi.
I'm sorry, I didn't lower my hand, but I was gonna add to that comment. So I'll raise my hand and lower it again. I'm not sure. I'm actually now reading this, maybe leaning towards putting both in there, through the city's attorney's office or separate legal counsel, to allow for both avenues at this juncture. I do like the inclusion of legal counsel in the first sentence. But yeah, I guess if there's multiple entities that can issue a subpoena in this matter, and no one would be recusing themselves for any sort of reason, then I guess you can leave both avenues open at this juncture.
Thank you, Co-Chair. Co-Chair Dan?
Yeah, I think we should just say legal counsel the second time, because that could be the city attorney or it could be the board's attorney. So that way it can be interpreted later. We can find out what the rules are. Commissioner Grun.
Thank you. Commissioner Sophia?
Oh, I just like to say I agree, but I agree with that, but I do like using them both, having that option. I don't know, maybe the city might want to do something on their own. I don't know. I know making it general is good, but at the same time, it leaves people to interpret things their own way. So
And what would you suggest, Commissioner?
I would say both, just as Co-Chair Obi had suggested. I'd like his suggestion.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, let me then go and ask the questions. Is there a strong opposition to changing from what it was to use all the proposed changes? No. Staff?
Just to clarify, are you asking if the proposed change from city attorney's office to legal counsel, or are you asking about the city attorney's office to legal counsel or the city attorney's office?
Okay.
Two separate proposals.
Yeah, I can ask for the first part. And I mean, the first part I'm going to ask about subpoena, the canceling. Is there a strong opposition to canceling subpoena tecum? Is there a general agreement to cancel subpoena tecum? This is tecum. Okay. Wait, that change is free. And then the next change. Is there a strong opposition to adding legal counsel? to the be strong is general agreement to change it just to legal counsel. That's, yeah, okay, let me ask. Is there a general agreement to changing and using legal counsel or the city attorney's office? Adding that, both. Legal counsel, adding. We only have two. Do we have two? I didn't see, only two. And then, yes, Commissioner Moni?
I'm kind of leaning towards just having legal counsel there because I think legal counsel encompasses be a private lawyer. It could be, you know, it could just general legal counsel that's the way I'm leaning right now.
Okay, thank you. Then we're gonna ask, who is agree that they only has to say through legal counsel? Okay. Then because we have three members that will agree that only has legal counsel, we will have to go with that. 3 of 5. Yes, thank you. Okay, we will leave it at only legal counsel and we can go to the next one. And I know before we're gonna leave it at the end and go back to them, and then we're gonna review B5.
Okay, B5, the oversight board shall maintain the confidentiality of any confidential records. To remain as transparent as possible, records available in the public sphere shall be openly accessible. All members of the oversight board shall not disclose confidential or legally privileged information or records and shall be subject to the same penalties as the legal custodian of the information or records for any unlawful or unauthorized disclosure.
Thank you. Can we go to the next one? Okay.
B6, any person who fails to comply with a subpoena will be subject to contempt proceedings as prescribed by state law, provided that such persons shall not be required to answer any question or act in violation of rights under the constitutions of the state or of the United States.
There is a discussion on this side for B6. Co-chair Dan?
This is where the question about the verb is, I think, important. I think it should say any person who fails to comply with a subpoena may be subject to contempt proceedings. So if it says will, right? We already said we don't want that we don't want to put people in jail necessarily for not doing it. So if we use the word may, then it doesn't obligate the board to start contempt proceedings. I hope that people will agree to that modification.
Thank you. Is there a strong opposition to changing and using the word may instead of the will? Is there a general agreement to change it and use the word may instead of will? Okay, we can go to the next one.
Okay, access to police records. This is new to us, but I'm sure you guys looked at it and you can get through this. So C1, the oversight board should have direct access to all bureau information and records, including confidential and legally privileged information. Quick question, sorry. We haven't discussed this as a group. Do you? I mean, I would say open this section, next section to discussion, like not just like jumping to it if need be, but if everyone's in direct agreement, which I'm sure some of these are going to be less controversial of discussions, we could go to voting too.
Okay, and my question will be for these new ones will be if there are any discussion or comments, and then if Co-Chair Dan.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were going to ask us if we had consensus. Yeah, so my suggestion, I mean, we don't have to talk about the current city code except to say that this is a modification for, we don't have to say we'd have to, because the existing city code is going to all be thrown out. Essentially, we're putting in a new city code. So that discussion is helpful for us right now, but I think this would just be a place where I would flag it as a footnote and say, you know, this is a modification of city code 321, whatever. Does that make sense?
Thank you. Then can we go to the next one?
You didn't ask us for consensus, yes.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Do we have, oh, and I have a staff?
I'm not sure if this is necessarily known, but I'm not sure, you know, our deputy city attorney who's assisting this commission is not here today, so I was going to ask them about that, but I'm not sure if the assumption is that all existing code is going to go away that relates to this issue area, because, well, one, I'm not sure if that's just the assumption of council, but also I know that there was a conversation around, you know, maintaining some portions of it and retaining, you know, adjusting others and removing the third, which implies that's an open question. So I'm not 100% sure if that is in fact a consensus position of either the commission or council yet. So I wanted to ask about that. That doesn't necessarily presuppose what your decision would be about what code would be, just whether or not you need to make a decision about what code will be, if that makes sense, in particular cases. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Sophia?
I guess I have a question about the text underneath C1. What are we trying to say? I mean, I know we're talking about what we have. It looks like we're talking about what we have right now and what one amendment. I'm just not sure what are we trying to do. I mean, I like the first part, C1, oversight board should have direct access to all bureau information and records, including confidential and legally privileged information. But I'm not sure why we have the other part. I'm just trying to find the significance of it. That's all.
And before we have the discussion, can we separate it out and ask for a comply first, and then we can have a discussion? We can ask for a strong objection or keeping as a request. Okay. I will pass it to co-chair Obi.
Thank you. When I was looking at this section, it's more just for informational type things to just kind of making it easier to read. And I wanted to start a basis point what we have, and then the later C numbers, you'll see that we kind of expand on this idea. But this is kind of just a starting point of what IPR theoretically already has. It's more discussion than anything else. And I think later on to address some of the faults, and I wouldn't say weaknesses, some of the faults in the system.
Thank you. Staff?
Yeah, and it is helpful maybe to look at it in the context of C2, C3, C4, as Commissioner Co-Chair Obi mentioned, but also to kind of clarify the bold versus the not bold. The document is areas of agreement. The actual agreements are the bolded text. Mm-hmm. The other information below is either a footnote, as Co-Chair Dan has mentioned, or it's a reference to what's being changed. If it's something like, you know, word change in this particular case, it's saying that it's clarifying that there'd be the addition of the word direct, or it's just simply saying this is what already exists. So some sort of thing that the actual question for the members is, you know, does the bolded text have the support and agreement of, you know, the consensus or modified consensus, as the case may be, of commissioners? And ideally, if there's something that is controversial, it would be something that's in the bolded text. If it's controversial and it's in the not bolded text, then it's not really what the idea behind it is. Does that answer your question, Commissioners? Thank you.
Then, staff, I would ask just for the bold part, if there is consensus, and just that part? Is there a consensus on the ballpark of C1? Yes, okay. And then for the notes or for the additional information, can we come back later and discuss it, or you wanna make changes or suggestions? No, okay. Then we can go to C2.
All right, and C2, in performing their duties, the board shall have access to bureau data and records, including but not limited to raw data, tabulated summary statistics, other source materials, and any other format source necessary for the board to perform its duties. The oversight board shall have the direct access to original database sources as permitted by state and federal law.
Thank you. Do we have consensus to approve? And can we move on for C3? Okay, thank you.
For the improvement of both the efficiency of the oversight board as well as the police bureau, direct access should be available to the board and its staff in situations where the bureau is a custodian of record. This includes, but is not limited to, police and ABCD, I think that's what word. Police records, police reports, digital information management solutions, DIMS, Versaterm computer aided dispatch, VCAD, or other future CAD systems, as VCAD is what a bureau currently uses, after action reports, training records, and GPS and global positioning system data.
Thank you. Do we have any discussion questions? Then can we move on to the next one? Okay. Oh, Commissioner Monica?
I have just a very quick question, may not be that quick, actually. Is there, could we add here the history of the police officers' discipline, their discipline history, right? Like I know that's an HR record, but is that something that we could add there? Or is that protected information by state law at this point? I think it is.
Yes, Co-Chair Obi?
I am not sure if it's protected state law. We need to definitely check with council, but I remember seeing something similar in a different city about that. It'll come from a later question that will look about like the kind of reports and stuff, but I think at least to my recollection, another city has something similar. So I do not disagree with putting that in there.
Thank you. Commissioner Sophia?
I was just going to, agree and say that, I don't know if we want to, I don't know. I guess disciplinary records is definitely specific, but, I don't know if there might be some other administrative records that we might want if we want to make that general. And then I also wanted to point out that, in our previous sections, we said access to all information as well. So I don't see anything wrong with adding it. Honestly, I think it's a good one.
Thank you, Commissioner. Co-Chair Dan?
Yeah, I agree. I think that it should say discipline and complaint history. This is addressed in the discipline section of the officer accountability flow of work, but it should be access to information should address that here. I think that's a good place for it. And I looked up DIMS. It's the S stands for system, not solution. So just so we can make that correction.
Thank you. Okay, let me ask the first, is there a strong opposition to change from as it was solution to system? And if there are general agreement to change it to system, because that's the name. Thank you. The second part, is there a strong opposition to have discipline and complaint history of individual officers? Is there a general agreement to a discipline and complaint history of individual officers? Okay, thank you. We can go to next.
C4. To the extent of state and federal law, the Oversight Board should have direct access to more extensive database networks to which the Bureau subscribes. This includes, but is not limited to, Region or Regional Justice Information System, and CJIS, Criminal Justice Information System. Of note, this was discussed in our IPR discussion, our second meeting of this subcommittee. I think this will be subject to whatever legal counsel says about both the status of the new board and what it's recognized as in regards to status in criminal justice. Someone can correct me on that. But I would suggest putting it in here. I wrote it, I suggest putting it in here just to kind of maintain our clarity of we would like direct access to records that the PPP deals with in regards to the new board. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sophia.
I just wanted to get some clarification on when we say more extensive databases. I mean, I know you put the examples here. This is the Regional Justice Information System. Is that included as a more extensive in the Criminal Justice Information System? So my thought was, can we just say all databases? Because I think there may be others that may come up eventually, just giving ourselves some room. And then we can use those examples there as well. It's already there.
Thank you. Then your suggestion is to have all databases. Thank you. Co-Chair Obi?
Yeah, no, yeah, thank you. I like that modification. I think more extensive just because like those ones, I think they have a relate when you look at those online, they have a relation to actually what the federal government has like a portion of a mandate for this, and like the government checks on the state, which checks on the city, which checks on the county and individual stuff too. And these were, I think, what they directly link because then multiple systems in Oregon use. But yeah, saying all doesn't take away from these two main ones. And it also was like tempered by like what the Bureau subscribes to. It was like, in the setting of being a Portland-based oversight board, we want to do what like Portland also does. So I think that's actually very reasonable.
Thank you. Co-Chair Dan?
Yeah, I like it too. My only suggestion was say all relevant database networks, because if they have a network about police car engines or something like that that has nothing to do with oversight, we don't have to have access to that. That's all.
Thank you. Commissioner Sophia? Okay.
I forgot to put my hand down. So.
No, that's okay. Let me ask, is there a strong opposition to changing to all relevant database network from, is there a strong opposition to that change? Is there a general agreement to change it? Okay, thank you. We can go to the next one.
C5. The Bureau responses to public records requests shall prioritize the Oversight Board's requests above all other similar requests and should respond within 5 business days with either records or of notice why records have not been sent over.
Is there any discussion or questions about C5? Co-Chair Dan?
Well, this is where we have a Plan B written in. That I'm not sure if the question I see in my notes here is that whether or not this should be a standalone or should just be in here. My feeling is that we should have these plans be underneath the same topic, so it's clear what they're referring to. And also, by putting it in its own section, it implies that we think that both things will be true. So I'm hoping we'll keep this all together.
No, thank you.
But yeah, just reading it in that standalone portion for C5, in the event that requests for records or other evidence are not complied with, the oversight board may issue a subpoena.
Okay, your suggestion is on the point. Can you repeat it just for the staff to make this change? Oh, leaving it as it is. Okay, thank you. Let me ask, can we go to the next one? Okay, thank you.
For records access, C6, for records accessed within the Portland Police Bureau system, the oversight board should not be required to submit a fee or use any of their budget. This is current practice. I think it should just be extended.
Is there any suggestions, discussion? No? Oh, co-share done?
Yeah, I'm not sure why or use any of their budget is a separate issue. It sort of seems like it could be confusing if the staff itself is accessing that and they're paying for it. It sounds like they're going to ask for the Bureau to reimburse, the investigators and the new board. So I think we should just leave it as not required to submit a fee.
Okay, thank you. Let me ask, is there a strong opposition to change it from what it was to eliminate it the last or use any other budget? Is there a general agreement to leave it and have the change? Okay, thank you. We can go to next one.
C7, the city shall ensure a discrete source of adequate funding in addition to that required that oversight board operations, for oversight board operations to fully pay for any fees the oversight board incurs when accessing information from a non-PPB source. Open to discussion on this one, but in the rare circumstances, accessing information elsewhere might have a cost to it. I think having some sort of set statement saying the city agrees that, not trivial, but that things should not uphold the new board's ability to do their jobs correctly. This potentially is one of them that's in that could impede their workflow. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, do we have discussion or questions or comments about C7? No, then can we go to C8, to the next one? Okay, and I know C8 is the last, and after this one, we can take a short break.
Okay, C8. The Oversight Board shall establish a standard of PPB reporting to the Oversight Board, including required aggregate information, use of force cases, and frequency, e.g. monthly, quarterly, or annually. For a discussion point here, I think I'm going to ask for clarification with Co-Chair Dan. I know that's in a section that we mentioned before. In this example that I wrote, I meant that the Bureau would send over data to the board about these things, not a report that the board gives out to the city or to Portland on a timely or on a specific set basis. This is the board giving it to the, Bureau giving it to the board automatically. I'm not sure if that is in this one, which what I thought, versus in other subsection.
Yes, Co-Chair Dan?
Okay, I see where you're getting at. So I think we should just reword it, say the board shall establish a standard by which the PPB reports to the board, right? And it says the board twice, but it should be clear, I guess. Oh, we didn't capitalize board all over the place. Oops. Yeah, I think that would be more clear than that way.
Thank you. Let me ask then, is there a strong opposition to changing, to making the proposed change by Co-Chair Dan? Is there a general agreement to make it the changes Co-Chair Dan suggests for C8? Okay, thank you. There is an additional comment, so no? We'll finish with, okay. The next is data and, or can we move on to data?
I have no opposition, but I understand, like, we're around halfway through in the meeting. Whichever works is fine with me, whatever everyone wants to do.
Okay. This A15, let's come back at 8:24. That way we start. Thank you. Thank you. We continue reviewing the document and we're now in data on section D. Sorry.
All right, I'll be continuing with data. D1, if the board requests medical information of any individual in an investigation, the requested information should be limited to the scope of the complaint. All requests should comply with federal HIPAA laws as well as state laws.
Thank you, Co-Chair Obi. Is there a discussion or no? Okay, staff?
Yeah, so there are comments on each of the items in all four of the items in this, and for a couple of them, they relate to other subcommittees. So maybe they make sense to have a clarification altogether on what items might be better suited to be in the discussions of officer accountability specifically.
Okay, and who's gonna lead?
Sorry.
No. And who's gonna have that discussion? Co-Chair Obi? The explanation or no?
Yeah, no, I'm looking at the staff edits and it said it could be a better fit for the officer accountability subcommittee. It's not necessarily a police record. And this has to do with how the board investigators get information specific to a complaint from the complainant or while investigating from an officer.
Okay. Thank you, Co-Chair. Commissioner Monica?
I have a feeling that there are going to be medical records included into information that the board gets for investigations. So I think this is an important thing to have here. I feel like it should stay.
And you're Commissioner Monica, you're referring to only to D1.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And Co-Chair Dan?
Yes, well, to the extent that this actually is also part of the officer accountability subcommittee's work, I think that the question of accessing it, it's not harmful to put it in both places. And once we combine everything, if it's not necessary to be here anymore, we can take it out later. But I think it's helpful to have it here as well, even if it's slightly duplicative of what we have.
Thank you. Then if they leave D1 there, as there, can we go to D2? Okay, thank you.
Okay, D2, the board shall be provided with means of safely securing both physical and electronic information during its consideration of complaints. Electronic access to sensitive materials should have security or encryption that abides by city, state, and federal standards. The members of the board will abide by the retention schedule set for sensitive information acquired throughout the course of an investigation, as well as after an investigation has been completed.
Thank you, Co-Chair Obi. Is there any discussion or comments in D2? And Commissioner Sophia? You're in mute.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, just a comment on the retention schedule. I don't know if you need to be specific by the state or by the city requirements. they may or may not have the same schedule. Maybe we should say what that is, which one we're following, which retention schedule.
Mhm.
That's all.
Thank you. And your suggestion, the specific change you're suggesting is the members of the board will abide by the retention schedule of the city? Or
I
what
don't,
would-
I don't know which one. That's why I'm asking. I don't know if they're the same, if the city goes by the state retention schedule for records, or if the city has one of its own. So maybe there should be some specifications there, and maybe something we can look up rather.
Thank you. Co-chair Dan?
My suggestion would be put the word applicable in front of the pension schedule, and that way we don't have to figure out what it is.
Okay, by the applicable. Thank you. Okay, then the question is, if there is strong opposition to changing to adding the word applicable as to the proposed change? Is there a general agreement to change it? Okay, perfect. We can go to next.
D3, the board, capitalized board, will become the custodian of information given directly to the oversight board by external sources, as in volunteer testimony, electronic information, and will set their own retention schedules for safe disposal of the information.
Thank you. Is there a question or comment on D3? Commissioner Dan?
So this is kind of a formatting question, maybe. It really seems like D4 is directly related to this and will answer a question that's going to come up when somebody reads this by itself.
Mhm.
But I don't know. I don't know if we should combine them into one that has two parts, or just leave it the way it is. So just looking ahead, the next one is about information that the board grabs that it doesn't actually own. So if anybody has a suggestion about how to deal with that, let me know.
Thank you. Co-chair Obi?
Yeah, I'm not against that idea. We discussed that too. It's like, I think they definitely both need to be stated, and we took into account suggestions that were emailed in. But yeah, that I am not against combining the two, as long as it, so everyone knows it's one coherent idea. But they should be, I think, separated points. Like, this is what happens when the new board owns it. This is what happens when the new board accesses it but doesn't have the ownership to it.
Okay, then the suggestion is combining both, but making it separate. And how do you suggest doing the combination? Or
I don't want to, since just in the setting of what we're doing now, I don't want to necessarily indent it, because I don't want it to look like a backup plan idea. I can see why it gets a little bit text heavy. If you just make it 2 sentences, that's a lot to read for one thing. Either way, if there was like a shorter indentation with dot points or something that clearly wasn't like our secondary plan, that would be okay.
okay, thank you, Co-chair. And how it is there any suggestion in how to combine these two, or we can move on and separately? Let me ask if there's any suggestion to combine those two. Commissioner Dan?
Well, maybe what I would say is, in the parentheses that says e.g. volunteer testimony, electronic information, and then within that same parentheses say for external sources CD4, or or something like that. And I know it's weird, we haven't really done something like that before, but I think that's an easy way to do it without having that giant block of text that co-chair Oju was talking about.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Sophia?
Thank you. I was gonna suggest something similar, but maybe putting a subtopic right at the beginning, internal, external sources, data sources, and internal data sources, like somewhere up front, like D3, external data sources, the board will become, you know, the custodian, and then you do the same thing on D4, says, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get the right words. Information that the board requires from external media sources. I don't know. I'm just thinking if you know upfront that there's going to be something specific, then you won't have to worry about, you know, trying to put them together, because they'll know this one is external or directly given to the oversight board, and then this other one is external media sources. So I don't know, maybe some kind of subtopic similar to what co-chair Dan was saying. I'm just fumbling over how to put it in there like that.
Thank you. And staff?
Yeah, just in the interest of time, it might be worth recalling that the usual request for the thing that subcommittees usually come to consensus on when referring a document is to refer it, but also to allow the co-chairs to reformat it as needed. So it may be helpful to allow that process to take place outside of public meetings between now and the full commission.
Okay, Coach, thank you, staff. Co-chair Dan?
Well, I think Commissioner Glenn has gotten me inspired. I think so that D3, we can say information acquired by the board, colon, and D4 will say other information, colon.
Okay, is there any additional changes? No? Okay, let me ask, I will ask for the D3 first. Is there a strong opposition to changing from and adding information given to the board to this sentence? Is there general agreement to change it and adding those words? Okay, thank you. And then the same thing for D4. Is there a strong opposition to changing from what it was to the proposed changing, adding other information? And Coach Dan?
Yeah, we haven't read this one into the record yet. So
Okay.
as a
Yes,
Sure.
you're right. You can read it.
I'll just get that done real quick. Sorry about that. For D4, other information that the board acquires from external media sources, in parentheses, uploaded videos, images, social media, that has not discreetly been given by the owner will be treated as public records, with the understanding that the board does not own or have the ability to grant further publication rights to media not generated by the city or obtained through the above mentioned process.
Thank you, Co-Chair Obi. Is there a strong opposition to changing and adding other information? Is there a general agreement to changing and adding other information to D4? Perfect, thank you. We can go to the next. Can we go to the next one? Yes, okay. The next area is E, body camera footage. We can go and start with the discussion.
Okay. So E for body camera footage. This is a new section. Once again, I'd like to thank Commissioner Monica for the research done here. We formatted it, like I said like I said beforehand, we kind of formatted it into sections that would be appropriate for our mandate in this subcommittee. So we'll just read through it and then read, of course, the bullet points. I think like just looking at the initial statement, which is kind of included in this for body camera footage, the Police Accountability Commission is aware that the city has not currently implemented police body cameras but anticipates that the city will have fully implemented or be close to fully implementing police body cameras by the time the oversight board begins its work. That's a pretty agreeable statement. And we'll just go ahead and start with the bold statements. So E1, the oversight board shall have automatic access to all body camera video footage without having to request it separately.
Thank you. Can we go to the next one? Okay. Thank you.
E2,
Me too.
the oversight board shall have immediate access to all body camera footage.
Is there any questions? Yes, Commissioner Monica?
Is that saying the same thing that E1 is saying, or what's the difference?
Thank you. And this, Co-Chair Obi and then a staff.
Yeah, I think, so, yeah, subtle point. It's like, having like access to footage, but then like in the term of like immediate, it would be later on. There's another point too about like immediate access and who has access to that before reports are given. Then in acute phases or in acute events, the board or its investigators would be able to immediately access records to then discuss when in the compelling testimony. I guess not specifically mentioned, but in the compelling testimony phase, they would have access to records as well as kind of a two-pronged approach to getting information.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Thank you. Staff?
Yeah, it might also, the distinction might also be helpful to note, like that there is information that the police bureau is currently required to release, but is not required to release at a given time. So it's automatic that it will be released in the sense that a request does not need to be made for it. But separately from that, it can be delayed. And this is not necessarily exclusive to the police bureau. Anything could be released without a request. And so that's why the two were sort of separated out into one, not needing to make a request is just there, and two, that it happens directly and immediately.
No, thank you. Then let me ask, can we go to the next one, to A3? Is there consensus? Yes. Okay, E3.
E3, all recorded footage of every event that comes to the oversight board for review should be available in full without any editing or tampering.
Is there a discussion? No? Then is there a consensus of E3? Can we go to E4? Or Commissioner Sophia?
Just one minor edit. It says should and say shall. Instead of should say shall. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Is there a strong opposition to changing for what it was to the proposed change? Is there a general agreement to changing? It was suggested. Thank you. We can go to the next one.
All right, I'm going to read out the non-bolded text to give it more clarity. The Police Accountability Commission, having evaluated body camera structures and proposals, agrees that the following items are necessary to ensure the Community Police Oversight Board's success. The Police Accountability Commission's mandate from the City Council does not include addressing these items. Nonetheless, these proposals support the Oversight Board's ability to fulfill its mandate. So, number one, the Oversight Board should be the owners of the body camera footage and ensure that the Bureau has access to view footage. And I'm gonna also read the sub point too, because I think this is a discussion where it's coming from. If the Oversight Board is unable to be the owner of the body camera footage, at a minimum, the board should be co-owners with the Bureau, and digital access to the body camera footage will always be turned on for the board and its staff.
Thank you, Co-Chair Obi. Is there any question or suggestions to this? Number one? Okay. As we have consensus, can we go to the next one? Oh, Commissioner Coco done.
Well, before we move on, I just want to point out that this is a very huge suggestion, and that basically, if the board becomes the owner of the footage, that means the police have to go to them to get access to the body camera footage, which I think would help. What that middle paragraph says about prevent misuse of the body camera footage by police. There's I believe there'll be an argument about that will be chew up most of the budget of the board, but I think that our counter argument is that somebody's going to have to manage the body camera footage, so that money is a separate pool of money, and whoever is managing the body cameras will get that pool of money. So that should be added to the budget of the board on top of what they already have. I hope that makes sense, and I hope that helps us prepare for the inevitable pushback.
Thank you. Then we already agreed to go to number 2, but is anything? Okay, thank you. We can go to number 2.
Number 2, the retention schedule should mirror the timeline to make a complaint. I think argumentative wise that makes sense, and the example that we have been discussing, and once again in Monica's research, a point to avoid would be video camera footage that gets deleted after like a 90-day or 3-month period, when the ability to make a complaint might be a year or more. So you want to keep the video camera footage as long as you are able to make a complaint, and then plus longer if a complaint is investigated during the complaint investigation.
Thank you, Co-Chair Ovi. Commissioner Sophia?
Just a thought on this, about the retention schedule. I agree that it should be at least as long as the people have to make a complaint, but I also feel that the retention schedule should be much longer than that. I don't know what the retention schedule should be, but I think it should be longer, and I don't know what to say, whether it's so many years or whatever, but that's just something to think about. If anybody has any suggestions, I'm open to hearing those.
Okay, Commissioner Monica?
I think part of my hesitancy to agree is that a lot of social justice organizations are concerned about all of this footage being held, and what is the government doing retaining all of this information that is really private for the community members that are in that footage. It's not just about the police members, but also the community members that are in that footage. So that's where it becomes a little bit sticky. Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner Monica. Yes, Co-Chair Dan, and then staff.
Yeah, well, so I think as long as the timeline to make a complaint and resolve any civil action, I would say, and then the body text, the explanatory text, it says relevant body footage. I'd like to add in instances that could reasonably be interpreted to potentially include misconduct. So that way, anything that, as Commissioner Arce is saying, if it's like a completely benign, just talking to somebody on the street, that might be flushed earlier. And then finally, the part about filing of a complaint should say to file and resolve a complaint, including any appeals and any civil action, just to mirror the other language I just suggested.
Thank you. Staff?
Yeah, I had two points. One is what Co-Chair Dan just mentioned about and resolve. I was going to say that the explanatory paragraph refers to having enough time to make and implicitly, now explicitly, and resolve a complaint, but the bolded text doesn't actually say and resolve. So just wanted to point that disparity out and see if members wanted to address that. The other point is, and this is a little bit of a threading the needle. I think it's appropriate for the PAC to make a suggestion that there be at least enough time to do that in order to allow for the oversight board's work to be successful. Picking a specific amount of time might be more outside of the scope of the PAC, especially because that's being figured out by another process right now. So just to kind of clarify for anyone who might be thinking either that this is, we could do more, or you could do you could do more, or that this is itself too much. Finding the place in which this affects the ability to achieve the other things makes sense in a way that either a specific amount of time or leaving this entirely out might not. So just wanted to flag those two things, not a particular suggestion, but just wanted to make sure everyone knew why it's kind of being put in as this is outside of the mandate, and yet it's worth mentioning. And as a side note on that, the introductory text to this whole section is mirroring the fact-finding phase documents where under subject matter experts, a very similar thing was done by the PAC.
Thank you, staff. And I just want to remind everyone this 8:50. I just checking the time, but then, okay, we go to Commissioner Dan.
Okay, so if I can see the document again. So I think what staff, the suggestion is good for us to mirror that language in the bolded text and say to make and resolve a complaint. But the other thing about this would help the board do its work. That's already in that introductory paragraph you just pointed out to us. So I think we can just count on that to talk about that. I just want to make sure that it says include, interpreted to include potential misconduct. Just so that we're not assuming that whatever the officer did was misconduct just by the fact that they used force on somebody or whatever. But I don't want to get caught in a word game about that. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, yes, Commissioner Sophia.
Yes, I'm building on everything everyone has said, and I wanted to include, I don't know how long other jurisdictions keep theirs, their body cam or dash cam videos. I don't know how long that's kept, but I do know co-chair Dan talking about the resolve any civil actions. Those can go on for many years. So I that's why I'm saying I don't know what the timeline should be, but that, adding that for the civil actions, and then there's also counters, even in the civil that can go on for years. So I don't know what to do right offhand, but I just want us to keep a thought on keeping that open. The state's rules on how long when you can make a claim for a civil case. I think you usually have a few years, depending on which state you're in, and so on and so forth. I'm just trying to come up with something that doesn't tie our hands on that. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sophia. Is there any additional comments or discussion? Yes, Commissioner Monica.
If I remember from my research, there's definitely a process by which all body-worn camera footage is reviewed and flagged for retainment and the rest of the stuff is deleted, because it's every single interaction between the police and the community should be recorded if it's done right. So the amount of footage is so giant, right, that there's going to have to be some filtering. We just have to be, and I'm not sure whose job that's going to be. I'm a little bit worried about saying that the footage is going to be on the board. Does that mean that is the board also going to be responsible for flagging and deciding what footage is going to be kept and what footage is going to be deleted? Am I making sense there?
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Monica, and I will pass it to Co-Chair Dan.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. But as I said before, I think that there's going to be a staff that specifically is handling body camera footage, whether it's by the board or not. So we're not talking about the community members on the board being the ones responsible for flagging it, that there would be staff people doing that. So I think that can be resolved through that. I'm also seeing that in the Q&A, Jared Hager from DOJ asked about retention issues. No, we haven't gotten any information from the city attorneys about that, because it's the first time we've discussed body cameras really in the commission. But thank you for asking that and raising that question. I also just, in terms of the civil action issue that Commissioner Glenn brought up, there's a time limit for people to file a lawsuit, which is generally 6 months in state law. You have to file a tort claim first and 2 years in federal court. And that kind of goes from the point in time when you reasonably learned that the incident happened. But they could start disposing of footage if those suits haven't been filed within that time frame, right? I think. And I don't know if we need to add that language in there, but I'm just sort of saying that to allay any fears that they're hanging on every piece of footage forever and ever.
Okay, thank you. Okay, if there's no additional comments, let's do 2 parts on number 2. I will do the first bold part, and I will ask the question, and then we will go to the next changes. For the bold part is there a strong opposition to change it from what it was to all these proposed changes that say should be at least as long as the timeline to make and resolve a complaint and resolve any civil action? Is there a general agreement to changing as all the changes are suggestion on number 2 in the bold part? Okay, thank you. We can go to the next. For the next, is there a strong opposition to changing from as it was to all the proposed changes? They're here on the document in color. Is there a general agreement to change it and using all these new changes? Okay, thank you. Can we go to the next? Number 3?
Number 3, the police officer involved in the incident should write their report of the event without review of the video footage before being able to review the footage, to ensure that the reports represent the most accurate description of the events as seen by the police officer involved in the events being recorded.
Thank you, Co-Chair Obi. Co-Chair Dan?
The only thing I would really strongly suggest that we change the most accurate description, because that's the argument that they're used, that they should be able to look at that footage. I need to say the most accurate representation of the officer's perception of the events. And then we can take out the as seen by the police officer involved. And that's just to kind of mirror that Supreme Court case I talk about all the time, the Graham versus Connor one, where you say you can't use 20/20 hindsight. I hope that's reasonable edit.
Thank you. Is there any other suggestions? Yes, Commissioner Sophia?
I don't have any right now, but I'd like to think on this one at a later date, a later time. So I'll go along with whatever it is here. I'm worried about some of the wording and I can't resolve it in my mind right now.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Sophia. Commissioner Monica?
Just trying to get a little bit of the event without review of the video, able to review the footage. I think there's a way to word this just a little bit better. That's all. The police officer involved in the incident should write the report of the event without previewing the video footage so that the report represents their most accurate representation of their memory of the event or something of the sort. I think it can be compressed a little bit, and I'm not, this is not my first language, so I'm not great at this.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Monica. And staff?
I was gonna bring up this exact thing, but I'm typing up what Commissioner Monica said really quick. So apologies.
It's okay.
I think Commissioner Monica, if you could repeat the center report, or if I could try to encapsulate it, but I think I got the beginning and end. So
should write, the incident should write the report of the event without previewing the video footage. Does that make sense? To ensure the report is the most accurate. Yes. Okay. I think that's it.
Thank you, Commissioner Monica. Thank you, staff. And Co-Chair Dan?
I think the part about writing a report should be expanded to say write the report or respond to questions about the incident, because in a deadly force case, officers are relieved. Thank you, DOJ. No, I'm being sarcastic. They're relieved of the necessity to write a report because there's an investigation that happens. So officers actually do not write reports when they use deadly force. So I just want to make sure we captured that possibility.
Thank you, Co-Chair Dan. Is there any other suggestion, staff?
just a wording suggestion to change without previewing to before viewing. Because I think previewing has multiple meanings that folks might interpret and be ambiguous about. But I don't know if that's acceptable to Commissioner Monica. Okay, I'm seeing nodding.
Commissioner Monica say yes. Okay, Commissioner Sophia?
My question is, do we have to say why? Can we just say that they need to write the report before viewing the footage? And do we have to say all that is where I'm going? Because we kind of know why, but I don't know. Sometimes people want to debate why we want to do whatever it is we want. So that's all. Just a question for the group. And it's okay to where it is. I just want to know if we even really needed it.
Yeah, Co-Chair Obi?
Yeah, no, I think we did discuss this with it came with a couple other things. Yeah, that why could be moved into the non-bolded section, because it's not the mandate of what we're saying. It's just the rationale, and albeit important, but it could be moved down.
Thank you. Okay. I don't know if staff and the let's wait a little bit. Okay, because I will do 3 first and then 4. Is there a strong
Oh,
opposition?
Sorry, facilitator Laura, the 4 was just a rewrite of 3, so it's
Okay.
really just this and
Okay,
these 2 parts.
okay, then I will do 4 and 2 parts. Number 4, is there any strong opposition to changing from what it was to what it is now? And I can read it. The police officers involved in the incident should write the report or respond to questions about the incident of the event before viewing the video footage. Is there general agreement to change it what I just read? Okay, thank you.
Sorry, that's a typo. It should say or the event. Apologies.
Okay. Should I read it again?
No need. Just that one word here in the middle.
Or, okay.
Was of is now. It should be or.
Or, okay, thank you. Then we go to the next part on number 4. And is there a strong opposition to changing from as it was to the proposed changes? Is there a general agreement to change it to what it was to what is now? Okay, perfect. Thank you. Then can we go to the next one? And I think the next one is go back to B4. Coach Jordan?
Yeah, well, I just, Mr. Hager asked if he had suggestions, if he should let us know about them, and I plan to click on respond, and instead I said I will respond live. So if you do have anything that we messed up royally before we complete this, if you want to type it into the Q&A, I'd be happy to look at them. Thanks.
Yeah, we will check. We can answer the Q&A when we have public comment, but now we need to finish the document and we will go for B4.
Okay, B4. The Oversight Board can subpoena a sworn Bureau member employed by the Portland Police Bureau. Previously, at our last meeting, this was a discussion. The current practice is that is not the case, that you can't subpoena documents. The weight of this is more in the compelled testimony section and currently practiced, and that, you know, issuing a Garrity warning and compelled testimony, and then if that doesn't go through, then there can be administrative consequences to not having compelled testimony given, but avoiding subpoena power, avoiding directly subpoenaing a bureau officer. So clearly up for discussion.
Thank you, Co-Chair. Obi, is there any additional suggestions, questions, or comments? Yes, Co-Chair Dan?
Okay, I'm glad my co-chair took this on because I have very strong opinions about this, and I didn't want to misuse my position as a co-chair to assert my position. So, but I will state my position, which is written in the comment there, and somebody else came up with this, it's not an analogy, but it's an analysis, that when you try to subpoena an officer, it will engage people from outside of the system, and we were trying to get our system to work within itself as much as possible, and they have less authority to compel the officers to talk than the board because the officer can plead the fifth. And so what they said was compelling testimony puts the board in power, but subpoenaing puts the officer in power because the officer can say just I plead the fifth and that's the end of it. So I don't know that it's worth listing this as a potential avenue because it just does not, I don't think it'll be productive for the board to try it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, yes, Commissioner Sophia?
I would just like to say I hear co-chair Handelman. I understand that that could possibly happen. There's a lot of things that could possibly happen. That was kind of my argument before. And this would definitely be something at the last, did you use at the last resort? If, so there's some examples that you might bring up that says something similar to like, what if they don't want to, maybe they want to be fired, maybe they want to be free to be able to say something in a subpoena. We don't know. I'm just saying that to have it and not use it is better than to need it and not have it. And then the laws and everything changes. We don't know what's going to happen. And, I've seen some instances myself personally where it might work on our behalf, but I do say we press for the alternative. We try and get them to do this, compel them rather than force them. So that's all I'm saying is I having them both, even if we don't use it, is you just don't want to tie your hands. You just never know what's going to happen. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sophia. Co-Chair Obi?
Yes, and I guess I will pose the alternative is that when I initially helped, or like when we initially discussed the documents and I looked at previous code, I was like, okay, current law said you cannot subpoena officers. And then flipped on itself, like, oh, you can subpoena officers. Well, there's also the ability to not write anything, which doesn't explicitly state one way or the other. Both points are both Co-Chair Dan and Commissioner Sophia's points I feel are great. And you don't want to tie, or trip over your own feet with one thing, but then you also don't want to take away an ability that might be important in some certain avenues. But if you don't state anything in this specific circumstance, I don't necessarily think it's implied one way or the other what you can and can't do unless above state or federal law came into play at some point, when state law came into play. So thank you.
Thank you. Co-Chair Dan?
All right, well, I'm going to propose some compromise language, which is, in general, initial efforts to tell officer testimony will be done through the administrative process. Failing that, the Oversight Board can subpoena a sworn Bureau member. Or, at its discretion, not failing that, so at its discretion. I hope that works for Commissioner Glenn.
Thank you. Commissioner Monica?
So I see where you're going. My worry is that if we put that there, then it is an avenue that a police officer can just say, well, go ahead and subpoena me and I'll plead the fifth. And then you can't go anywhere with this. So that is my worry with that. Right. So, okay, no, I'm not going to answer your questions. No, I'm not going to go through your administrative process. You can fire me or you can subpoena me. And if you subpoena me, I'm pleading the fifth. So I think we're shooting ourselves in the foot by doing that. That's my worry.
Thank you. What you're suggesting pretty much is to take it out completely. Mm-hmm. Okay. I will go to Commissioner Sophia and then I can ask the question. Commissioner Sophia?
Yeah, I thank Commissioner Monica for that, but they can do that without it as well. I mean, they can refuse even under, compelling testimony. Then we have nothing. So, they can refuse at any point in this. We don't have control over people. It's just, you never know why people are not wanting to be compelled. They could not want to be part of the group and the police force because there's issues with the police force. They don't want to rat on each other, right? So they may want to be out and they may want to do it. We don't know. So I would just urge us not to try and second guess what's going to happen because we don't know. You know, either they're going to cooperate or they're not. And it doesn't matter which way you do it. We can't make them either way. So my suggestion is, if there's a fail safe, I do like co-chair Dan's suggestion to put that in there as a caveat at the end, and we may or may not use it at our discretion, and we never know when it might be useful. It's like that knife you got in the drawer with a knife set. You got it, you don't know what to do with it. You know, it comes with the whole package. And one day somebody comes in your house and they say, oh, this is what you do with that knife. You're like, I never knew what to do with that knife. You know, I had it in the drawer. It was just collecting dust. So, you know, just, you know, I think having things and not using them are better than not having them at all.
Thank you, Commissioner Sophia. My first questions will be, is there a strong opposition to this entire section, to leave this entire section? Yes, staff?
Yeah, just to clarify, given that the entire section text was changed, I think it would be just to clarify, you're asking if there's opposition to including the highlighted text?
Yeah, I was gonna go to the second of my question. First, I wanted to see who wanted to leave it and who wanted to take it out. But I can go to that directly. Is there a strong opposition to changing from what it was to the proposed changes? Is there a general agreement to changing what it was? What it is? Okay, then I don't have to ask the other questions. Thank you. Then we finish with the document. The subcommittee has completed discussion on this document, and next on the agenda is discussing whether the subcommittee should refer the document to the full commission with all the changes we have made today incorporated into the text. There is a potential agreement document that was circulated that gives some context as to this decision. It also says that co-chairs and staff will be authorized to fix some of the formatting and typos prior to the full commission's consideration. Before seeing it, if there is a consensus around referring this document, we're going to hear from the public. After that, we'll ask if members want to make any final tweaks and then ask if they are ready to make a decision. We ask members of the public to now it's time for them to ask questions or make comments. Please keep your comments to 2 minutes in length and keep your comments focused on the draft document. You can raise your hand in Zoom when you like to be called on. And I see Dr. and I hope I pronounce it correctly. Now let me know. Rochelle Silver has raised its hand. Doctor?
Yeah, I wanted to comment on your idea about owning or co-owning the body-worn camera data. I have a concern that it is a tremendous undertaking, that it can turn out to be a creation of a department that will be bigger than the Oversight Commission altogether, that you'll need many employees, technicians, lawyers, who knows who, storage space, that there will be a lot of different kinds of people and entities asking for information, not just the police, but district attorneys, journalists, insurance companies, who knows who, and then people from the commission will have to work with this department somehow, and they'll be taking up a lot of time, and I'm not just sure that this is how you want to spend the Oversight Commission's time. And so I just wanted to bring that forward. Thank you.
Thank you. We really appreciate it, your comments and questions. Now we're gonna pass to Jared Hager.
Thank you. And thanks everyone for your work and service to this important project. I just wanted to explain a little bit about the comment, in that pre-review section, when you have, before they write their report or respond to questions, an involved officer in a deadly force event is going to be, maybe giving responses to a public safety statement on scene. And a clever lawyer, at a minimum might say, okay, so they can review their footage after that, but they still haven't given their full interview compelled statement within 48 hours. So that's one loophole. And even a more clever lawyer might say, if any question, and with the disjunctive there as an or, maybe they would say that, would apply to someone who's responding to questions. And, or, they didn't write their force report yet, but they've responded to questions. So now they can, and what questions? It's really about a full and candid account. And so that's what I put in the chat. But, I think there's a lot of ways you guys can approach this. And I appreciate you thinking about the body worn camera issue. The other point I wanted to make is, Dan, you gave us thanks for, and I think maybe snidely or sarcastically for eliminating that written force report requirement in deadly force cases. I wanted to remind everyone, big picture from my perspective is that this commission's work is going to, hopefully result in some amendments to the settlement agreement that the city council proposes. And to the extent you guys think things should change in the settlement agreement, I would love to, be advised of that. And, maybe if that is part of what you're going to do in this document, I don't know if that's beyond your purview. I think that might be helpful to the Department of Justice to know what this committee thinks should change in the settlement agreement, especially if, city council doesn't take doesn't approve your work. It would be nice for us to know, what you guys all think should change in the settlement agreement, because we might have to do something anyway. So thanks a lot for your work. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jared Hager, pretty much for your comments. Thank you very much. Is there any other? I don't think we have more people from public comment. No. Okay, we can continue with the agenda. And I need to ask, will any of the members of the subcommittee like to revisit any portion of the draft areas of agreement? And I will pass it to Co-Chair Obi and then Co-Chair Dan.
Just for the definite, and thank you for the both attendees who just sent in their recommendations. We'll definitely take those all to heart. Just the definitions portion, we did kind of minimize the specific subpoena and rote subpoena. So later on, I just said, as co-chairs, we can change that to eliminate those and strike those through, but keep Garrity one.
Thank you. Should I need to ask for consensus on that? Okay, let me ask a consensus. Is there any strong opposition to changing and taking these two definitions, subpoena and testificandum and subpoena das tecum, out? Is there general agreement to take these two options out? Okay, thank you very much. And I will pass it to Co-Chair Dan.
All right, well, I think I would thank Mr. Hager, and I'm hoping that people will be open to change the or. I have my thing viewed. I have my thing enlarged too much. Instead of or respond to questions, to say or have given a full and thorough statement about the incident. And I don't want to limit it to deadly force cases. There may be other cases where a cop can't write a report because they have been disabled somehow. So we have about the incident twice, so you can just get rid of that new, okay. I hope that's reasonable. And then I just also want to address the question that was raised by Sergeant Reyna early on, because they're gone now. But the city attorney's office is a city department, and that's the non-interference clause applies to all city departments, and I would assume that includes the city attorney's office. So just to make sure to go on the record to respond to that, and thank you. So I'm hoping that people will agree with that that change.
Okay, thank you, Co-Chair. Then let me ask for the last change for number 4. Is there a strong opposition to changing from what it was to the new proposed change that is highlighted in yellow? Is there general agreement to changing for the proposed change that's highlighted in yellow on number 4? Okay, thank you. My next question, is there any strong opposition to referring the draft areas of agreement to the full PAC for their consideration? Is there general agreement around referring the draft areas of agreement to the full PAC for their consideration? Congratulations. You should be very happy and proud of all your work. The co-chairs have indicated, no, this, what is that? I read it wrong, sorry. We will now take resume, no, because we are, okay, we did public comment. Now we go to next steps. And I will ask staff.
Yes, thank you. So first, congratulations. This concludes the sort of scheduled portion of the subcommittee's work. When we adjourn a little bit here, there are definitely still opportunities to adjust and add to it or improve or whatever you'd like to do to the document, just in your capacity now as full commission members. So the full commission will begin picking up this document and discussing it after it's been reformatted a little bit or by the co-chairs and staff at its meetings later this month. That is almost certainly going to be the first one that gets discussed, which will be on January 19th, Thursday, January 19th. As a reminder, the full commission has to address 4 items during this phase of work. One of them is this document. One is there are 2 more from the other 2 subcommittees, and then there are some definitions, 2 items as well, which I'll talk about in just a moment in the garden plot. But there is a reference and a sort of a nexus to that with how independent judgment is one of those 2 items. So those will come up later this month as well. And this will be the first of the 3 referred documents from the subcommittees that the commission will be talking about and eventually approving as an area of agreement. So just wanted to flag that, and then we'll talk about the garden plot, I'm sure, in just a moment.
Thank you, staff. Okay, then this is the time for facilitators, co-chairs, and staff to summarize any items already brought up today which didn't fit into today's agenda. We'll recap those items there and use them in developing future agendas. We won't be using this time to add new items not previously mentioned or to discuss any items, but we will use this list to develop future agendas so these items can be addressed. Now I will pass it to co-chairs to see if they have any item for garden plot recap.
No. Once again, thank you everyone for everyone's work. I think just like one lingering piece of thing is like the body cam section is a bit, we're still moving forward into what could happen with the city. I look forward to the 19th as we refer these documents, and people will probably send in their ideas, but seeing if there's any pieces that they think should be added to our section. It's great that we have other people from other subcommittees here too, but if seeing what other people think might be added to our section would be good, so we can relook at them, or at least Co-Chair Dan and I can look at how we can improve and solidify this document. But nothing else, and thank you so much, guys.
Thank you so much, Co-Chair Obi and Co-Chair Dan.
And for my very short tenure as co-chair, I just want to take a moment just to thank everybody for getting us to this point. I'm very excited that we were able to do it in one meeting, and looking forward to seeing what the rest of the commission has to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Co-Chair Dan. Okay, staff?
Yeah, so first, the garden plot item, the question in the Q&A from Leonie Reyna, which was referenced earlier about the city attorney and how that office works. I think that the way that is a garden plot item is for the full commission is that it relates to the independent judgment definition, and talking about that at the full commission level. And then I also just wanted to agree with Co-Chair Obi about the item with relation to body cameras, and also once again congratulate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, now as a reminder, you can submit advanced public comment to the Police Accountability Commission via web form, voicemail, or postal mail. Thank you to all the members who attended today's meeting and for your contributions today. We also thank the interpreters and the participators that provide public comment. And finally, we thank all members of the community, the ones who attended and they left early, and for everybody for contributing thoughts and questions. If you are not already signed up for email updates, please also sign up to receive updates from the PAC. This is the last meeting of this subcommittee. Congratulations to everyone. The next meeting of the subcommittee will be later this month. Yeah. That's what it says. No more meetings for the subcommittee, but they will have the next meeting for the full commission when you will present the document. It's now 9:31 and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you, everyone.